The movie begins with the voice of an elderly woman telling the story of a girl named Alia. Alia was married to a man she was deeply in love with, but as time went on, her husband started to mistreat her, causing severe distress to her mental health. The poor girl is about to give up on her life until she's empowered with a mystical power from the desert called Siba, aka the Hidden One. Eventually, Siba enabled Alia to literally burn her husband alive to end her suffering. However, her husband reappears seconds later, becoming a more faithful, all-serving counterpart. With this mystical shift in energy, the husband has no choice but to be subservient to Alia and digs a mysterious box for her. Now, Alia decides to use the energy to support helpless women like herself and to punish the guys who are responsible. The scene then shifts to a few decades later in modern-day Saudi Arabia, where we see a man named Tarek who works in the IT department of a real estate company. After getting home one evening, Tarek sees that his wife and daughter are not present and becomes worried about them. However, as he walks upstairs, Tarek is relieved to see them playing games together. When his daughter asks why he's so late, Tarek responds that those who work in IT are required to stay until the end. She then asks her mother what IT is, and when Tarek tries to respond, the girl ignores him. She claims that her mother is the best and that she has all the answers in the world. Hearing this from his child, Tarek is sad because he feels incompetent and has failed to connect with his daughter. Afterward, Tarek climbs to the terrace to sneak a peek inside their neighbor's bedroom. It turns out that his relationship with his wife has also strained, so he often looks at other happy couples and envies their marriage. The next morning at work, Tarek notices an attractive intern named Salma, who instantly captures his interest. Throughout the day, he keeps a close eye on her and waits for the ideal moment to approach her. Later, Tarek stays behind after his work is completed, instead of going home early. He listens to podcasts by life coaches who inspire their audiences about how men should be world leaders and take action. In the next scene, Tarek eventually gathers the confidence to approach Salma and smokes a cigarette with her. He's noticed how her supervisor, Abu Muath, behaves inappropriately with her. So Tarek mentions this and tries to warn her by claiming Abu Muath to be a sick predator. Salma, on the other hand, is unconcerned about this and claims that she can handle it on her own. Tarek then tries to continue the conversation with her, but Salma simply ignores his concerns and walks away. The following day, Tarek learns from Abu that Salma has resigned from her position. Surprised by this, he rushes to her office and discovers a curious box on her desk that's intended for Abu. Tarek is keen to learn more about Salma and this mysterious-looking box, so he takes it into his office while hiding from his colleagues. Once inside, he looks into the box and discovers a wireless tablet inside. As he turns it on, a video begins to play. The video is an invitation to Abu Muath to travel to an unusual location in search of a partner who will appreciate him. The couple would marry within 24 hours of the meeting, and the identity of the participants would be kept secret. In the next scene, Tarek decides to leave his family and board a plane that's bound for an exotic location. He eventually lands at an elegant hotel in the middle of the desert. The receptionist, who has a dead expression on his face, informs Tarek of the restrictions that must be obeyed throughout his stay. He must wear the attire provided to him, refrain from leaving his room after the ceremony is concluded, and dial 0 on his room's phone if he requires help. After that, Tarek is taken to his room, where he falls asleep for a while. Later, after waking up, he walks out of the room and into the desert, surrounded by gigantic rocky hills. He then tries to contact his family to check on them, but his phone has no signal. Moments afterward, another hotel employee enters to bring him a change of clothes and asks Tarek to cover his face with a headscarf to maintain his confidentiality. Sometime later, there's another knock on the door, and when Tarek answers it, he sees a creepy man who was Alia's husband years ago and is now her servant. The man leads Tarek down a dungeon and into a room where we see Alia sitting down. Apparently, Alia is known as the matchmaker here, and she informs Tarek that there's a communal vibe in this place, so every guest is urged to attend each other's wedding ceremonies. She assures Tarek that he'll soon receive his wish and that he only needs to trust them. Alia then gifts him with a red stone ring that's a copy of Siba's hidden ring. When Tarek asks if he can see his bride, Alia instructs him to stay patient and tells him to return to his room for now. Later, in his room, Tarek receives a letter inviting him to the wedding ceremony. That evening, he attends a wedding where numerous guys with their faces hidden in black scarves play instruments, and many more men dressed in white, including him, wait on the couches. These are the other visitors who have come to marry the women of their dreams. Tarek sits and looks around as another guest moves over to his table to sit with him, and they begin talking. The man excitedly tells Tarek that this is a whole other world and that they'll offer the men who've come here their dream women. When Tarek questions how he knows all this, the man admits that several of his friends had visited the location before, but none of them have ever returned home. Just then, the first guest is seen stepping out, bringing his bride on camelback, and everything appears to be in order. A while later, Aaliyah and a group of women stand on a mountain peak, looking through binoculars. They then witness something as they hear a man screaming in the distance. Among the women is Salma, for whom Tarek has traveled to this location. Meanwhile, Tarek listens to the man screaming and calls reception, but the phone isn't working. His balcony door is also locked, so he must go outdoors. But when he opens the main door to his room, Tarek notices a few people walking in, including the newlywed woman, her groom, and a few other guys in red dresses. Later, Tarek meets an old man who introduces himself as Salma's father. He claims he's been looking for Salma for 2 days and hopes Tarek can help him in finding his daughter. He warns Tarek not to trust anyone there and instructs him how to leave so he may find Salma. Tarek then takes the old man's advice and sneaks outdoors. After walking for a while, he arrives at a well where he meets a little girl. Almost immediately, the girl inquires if Tarek is looking for Salma, and Tarek responds that he is. She then requests that he fill a glass of water from the well for her, and he obliges. As soon as Tarek offers her the full glass, she dips a finger in it, turns it into blood, and simply walks away. Now Tarek decides to follow the little girl and finds an elderly couple who keeps saying the same line about Aaliyah again and again. He then suddenly awakens and breathes a sigh of relief upon returning to his own bed in the city. Following that, Tarek sneaks up on the happy couple next door. But this time, the happy couple turn to look at him, and Tarek's nightmare comes to an end as he awakens at the hotel covered in sweat. Furthermore, the ring that had been handed to him won't come off, and his ring finger is gradually decaying. The next morning, as Tarek awakens, he returns to the guest he met the previous evening, who informs Tarek he also had a nightmare. He also heard the weird noises Tarek experienced last night and had made the same mistake of leaving the room. Tarek then insists that they leave today or risk being trapped there, but the man claims that today is his wedding night. Now Tarek convinces him that Mona, the woman he was promised, may not even exist and that they must flee immediately. Realizing that Tarek's argument is true, the man agrees to meet him in the lobby in an hour. A while later, Tarek gathers his luggage and waits for the man, but he never appears. So Tarek goes to check on the man and hears him laughing from inside his room. The man then introduces Tarek to Mona, explaining that the hotel authority has allowed them to meet and that he'll be getting married today. He's now ready to put aside all the weird events and marry his perfect partner. Tarek, on the other hand, senses that something's wrong and decides to leave on his own. When he gets into the car that will take him to the airport, he's relieved, but just then, his driver tases him and brings him back to the hotel. A few hours later, Tarek awakens to find himself at his friend's wedding. The groom is overjoyed at the prospect of beginning his new life with the woman of his dreams. Meanwhile, desperate to get out of this hellhole, Tarek manages to hide in the woods while the musicians are busy boarding their trucks for a second location. Seeing this as an opportunity, Tarek attacks one of the musicians and steals his clothes. He then merges into the crowd and soon arrives on a beach with others. There, Tarek sees his friend approach his wife, who's standing with a box in her hand. But to the man's surprise, 2 guards approach him and torch him to death, while Tarek witnesses this with an expression of horror. However, moments after that, the man who is burned to death enters the scene and stands next to the bride with a cold look on his face. And before he knows it, Tarek is knocked out by the old man who claimed to be Salma's father previously. In the next scene, Tarek awakens to find a chair in front of Aaliyah. She's disappointed in his actions and asks him what he actually desires. Tarek claims to be in this place for Salma, but Aaliyah claims that he's ruined everything. Moments after that, Aaliyah leaves the scene and Salma arrives in the room. She then slaps Tarek, asking why he's here and questions about his intentions. Feeling agitated, Tarek then curses her, claiming she ruined his life. Eventually, Salma reveals that she left the invitation for Abu Muath due to his abusive nature at work, and Tarek was never supposed to be there. Afterward, Tarek lies in his bed, unable to move, while Salma converses with Aaliyah. Aaliyah shares her concerns about Salma's recent behavior and inquires as to what's wrong with her. Salma says she doesn't always agree with how things are done at the resort. She feels that these men should not be treated as soulless slaves and that they should be given a chance to change for the better. Salma has been a devotee of Aaliyah since she helped her in dealing with her violent partner, but she no longer believes in her methods. Furthermore, Salma informs Aaliyah that Siba has offered her a different answer, and she recognizes that it's the only way for her to find the happiness she seeks. Following this, Salma performs her magical spell and then burns down the resort, beginning with Aaliyah's office. She then removes the ring from Tarek's finger while he's helplessly lying in bed. In the voiceover, Salma tells Aaliyah not to be upset with her because of her actions. She expresses gratitude to Aaliyah for all of her help, and she believes she can carry on Aaliyah's teachings in a special way. Following this, all the men who had been imprisoned at the hotel are seen wandering away into the distance, and Salma notices this from atop a hill. And as the film concludes, Tarek returns home to the city, and now we see a transformed Tarek, determined to be a better husband and father to his wife and daughter.